Good morning. This morning we'll do a 30-minute practice. I'm noticing the lighting's a little different in this room, so I'll probably bring better lighting next time, but just trying a different spot. Also in this practice, I'm going to tell a story about one of my experiences I had this morning after when I woke up. One of my dreams, basically. So we'll start with some movement. It's earlier morning, not super early, but around 6:30 almost. And then I'll tell you the story and we can end with some meditation. Finding a seated posture, comfortable, feeling the sit bones rooted down into the ground. Let's take a few moments noticing our breath, elongating the torso and reaching through the top of the head. Extending upwards. Taking a few breaths here, feeling the abdomen area expanding as we're breathing in and out of the lungs. Now we can find ourselves in a kneeling posture. Let's do a little bit of movement, stretching our quads area. Stepping 1 foot forward, and as long as it's comfortable on that knee, giving a bit of a stretch to that hip flexor area. Breathing into it and releasing. Then switching to the other side, extending the other, placing the other foot forward, and breathing, releasing, stretching into the other side, hip flexors and quad. This time we'll go back, but we'll also do a bit of a hamstring stretch, starting with that quadriceps stretch on the first side again, then extending the leg, the front leg, and folding over that front thigh. I have a bit of roundedness in my back here, but I'm noticing the sensation along the back of my leg here. Whatever you decide, you can hinge at the hips or round a bit, wherever you feel the sensation. After a few breaths, we can move to the other side. appreciating some movements and some release in the morning. Let's get on into the tabletop posture, extending the fingers wide, the knees below the hips. We'll do a few cat-cow postures, inhaling and arching the back a bit, or I believe this is like lifting the hips and the chest, and exhaling, rounding the back. Slowly pressing away from the floor, but keeping our palms pressed against the ground with the fingers spread apart. We'll do this for a few breaths. And then we'll press back into a downward facing dog. Pressing back with the feet, lifting the hips up towards the sky, perhaps pedaling the feet. Maybe coming back down to the ground, pressing back into child's pose, extending the arms forward and lowering the head to the ground. We'll do another downward facing dog. And then returning to the ground again. This time in our child's pose, we can do a little bit of stretch to those lats, back muscles, by extending the one arm forward and crossing it towards the other side. So first getting to the child's pose, and then finding our arms crossed towards the other side, breathing and releasing along that same side. They can feel it more around the teres muscles and the rotator area. After a few breaths, we'll move it to the other side with the other hand. We'll do one more posture to extend backwards because I see the time is going. Extending the feet forward, placing the hands behind, we'll move into a reverse plank, energizing those back muscles and opening the chest. and bringing it back down. Maybe doing a little forward fold if you want. I had wanted to actually recount my dream experience, which only happened less than a few hours ago. But already I've done so much. I've been on my phone. I've printed out something, uh, some course that I'm attending soon with the military. Then I'm with the Volunteer State Guard now. And then I have to go to work at the spa today. So all these things in my mind, since this experience occurred, so that's why I want to get it down. I could write it down, but I said, let me just tell it also in a video. Now, many of you may have had experiences with dreams, especially waking up and remembering the most recent dreams. I think it's a pretty common experience that we often remember if like we're woken up a couple times during the night or immediately early morning, you might remember a dream that you were having based on your sleep cycle or whatever. Well, this was a little different experience. I've definitely had some spiritual type experiences before. This wasn't that, that phenomenal, but it was definitely unique because it was a different experience. So what happened was I basically became aware of being in a dream or being in that consciousness of being in a dream. And what happened was I looked at my hands and saw, focused my attention there to see that, and I had a clarity of mind, so to speak. But I'll go into how I got there. Basically, I've had a lot of dreams over the years where my dad, who had passed away in 2017, usually about a couple times or a few times a week on average, maybe at least once a week, I have a dream where I'm with my family, sometimes as I am now, or sometimes when I was younger. And there's a feeling most of the time of some kind of a family relationship. So I felt, mostly like comforting, good feelings. But then I'll wake up and I realize, oh, dad passed away. So this is but even though in the dream I was feeling that, we're a family together and all that. Now we'll just mention that, the last part of his life, maybe 10 years or so, that he sometimes had a kind of a pretty negative attitude at times. Of course, he was going through a lot of, I won't go into detail, but my real life memories of him are not always about, even though I'm very grateful that he's my father growing up and did all the things, as a father. But I have a lot of negative, emotions around, especially the end of his life as well. So basically a lot of negativity sometimes. But most of the dreams have always been that feeling of being with family and the comforting feeling. And then I'll wake up and it's kind of eerie because I realized that I really felt like I was there with family, with him there, interacting and communicating in the way that I enjoyed. And then I realized, oh wait, he's dead. Okay. So a little different there. But anyway, I've had those dreams now for years. And so I had a dream this morning apparently where I was in my old house that I grew up in since I was 8 years old, about 8 to, when I was at the Citadel college age. We moved out. So basically the greater part of my, childhood. So I was in that house. I've been in that house before in my dreams, but it was just me and him. And I felt that the family had not been there. They're out somewhere. And it was Christmas time. There were Christmas decorations around. But the most recent dreams I've had with him, like last one I had was he was sitting at the dining table in that same house. but it was almost like it was like an image of him. Like it wasn't the same feeling. It was more like this is my consciousness or my mind making up an image of him. Anyway, so it was more like robotic in a way. It was like him, but kind of like a robot, you know, not really him. So it could have just been me. I'm not saying that I'm actually getting in touch with someone on the other side. I'm just saying that maybe my mind constructed an image of him. And so this was a similar, it was a little bit of an ominous feeling. It's sometimes in the dream he would kind of float towards me or sometimes move towards me or I'd move closer to him and we'd be interacting about holiday stuff like decorations and food and things like that. But it was kind of like a darkened room, kind of like how this video is turning out, I guess, even though I'm sitting here and it's, well lit. But it was like a little bit of a darkness into the rooms, the kitchen, the living room. And at one point, I went down to our old basement, which I remember, and there was just one light. I kind of like wanted to like get away from the situation a little bit, just to like because it was like an image of him, but it was like kind of an ominous, uh, a portrayal, if you will. So at that point, I was kind of like how if you're in a bad dream and you're kind of trying to get away from something or whatever, or do things, you've had that awareness. Well, that's the kind of awareness I was at that point. I wasn't like lucid or anything. I was just like, yeah, I'm in a dream and this is what I'm doing. So I went down to the basement. I saw there was one light on down there. There's like one pull light. I checked the other lights, they weren't on. And I believe we did have one pull light in the middle that just you could turn it on and off. So I remember turning it off and then the basement went dark and then I hurried back upstairs to where, my dad was. But then I remembered in the dream that my dad was dead. So this is the second time I can remember that it wasn't like a real portrayal of him. It was kind of like a robot portrayal of him. And it was almost like my consciousness alerting me that, hey, this is, fake or whatever. This is, if you're dreaming about your dad or an image of your dad again, it's not real, so to speak. And that suddenly I was in another scene and I was outside a gated area. It was like, a short gate, like those black bars, typical gates you see in some places. And I was walking out on the sidewalk. At that moment, I realized that yes, it was fake because my dad was in it again, so I must be dreaming. That's the moment somehow there was a switch there. And then I had learned in a book that one of the ways you can be aware in your dreams is to look at your hands or look at an object. And so I said, hey, let me practice, let me do this. So I brought up my hands, and the moment that I looked at my hands, they look a little different than they do in real life, but they were still pretty similar the first time I looked at them. And I looked at them, and in that moment, my awareness changed from being in a dream, like how how you're being chased by something or doing stuff, and you wake up and you remember what you did. That kind of murky, ambiguous kind of like awareness, convoluted, to the same kind of awareness that I have right now in this physical space in this world. It was more focused, it was more clear, and I had mental clarity. So it was like as soon as I remembered, okay, that was a fake, that was, not really my dad, so to speak. And then all of a sudden I was on the sidewalk and then I said, well, let me look at my hands. As soon as I brought my hands up to my face, it was bam, clarity. That the same kind of clarity that I have in waking life, so to speak. And so that was a unique experience. It was like I was awake in my dream, basically. And then there was a few more times that I brought up because of course, stuff starts to blur and just your attention starts to go. So then I brought it up and I kind of like looked at it at my peripheral vision and stuff, and I would see like glowing like a translucent kind of appearance of hands. There was like 4 or 5 times, I believe like around 4 times I raised up my hands and then focused on an object in the distance, which I saw trees and I saw clouds. So focusing on that to kind of like bring my attention back, not to like go into this other dream world again. And then I remember doing it 4 times, and then things were starting to get, I wasn't really seeing my hands as well anymore. Then I woke up, and as soon as I woke up, I said, ah, or something like that, like as I woke up. But then it was daytime, and I had woken up. I didn't realize this till afterwards, but I had woken up in my old bedroom in that same house, and it was daylight coming in through the window. So, and just thought to myself in the dream, I thought to myself, oh, wow, I did it. I saw I focused attention on my hands, and I had this same awareness that I do when I'm awake in the physical world. And then after that, pretty shortly after that, like almost immediately, it felt that there was like this hazy and awakening, and I woke up normally like I normally do in my actual bed. And so then at that point I realized, oh, I had just woken up in my dream in my old house. But the awareness was continuous throughout. So that was a unique experience. It was interesting because now I have a kind of a tool or a way of knowing that I'm dreaming, and to work with that in whatever way. But basically, it went from the same repetitious dream that I've had of seeing my dad there to getting to the point of knowing, oh wait, my dad's it's not real, it's a dream, to using a method within the dream to become uh I've heard the term lucid dreaming and all this stuff, but I'm just telling you what it actually was for me. It was a instant mental clarity and awareness. And I was awake in my dream, because I can't really say, where I was or any of that. It was just a state of consciousness or whatever. So yeah, that was different. Anyway, I just invite you to definitely explore more if that's a topic of interest, dreams or just your attention in waking life, noticing things. One of the things that well, first of all, I did remind myself about looking at my hands for a few days now, since learning about that method. So that was one thing I did. But the other thing was I was driving yesterday, and at the stoplights, instead of engaging in a lot of mental chatter, I would just enjoy looking at a clouds. There were clouds yesterday. They were pretty big, strong, like, but individual, and just quieting my mind and looking at the clouds instead of having this mental chatter of negative mindset and all these kind of things. So that's a practice I did multiple times yesterday. And that's what I did in my dream to so that's just like something I did when my hands started to get, blurry and not really focused. Then I'd focus my attention on another object, which was clouds or trees that I saw in the distance. And then I'd go back to my hands again, raising them until I woke up in my dream and then woke up again in real life. So I definitely invite you to explore more if you're interested in either finding methods for reducing thought and reducing those negative, whirlwind of things that go on in our minds every day, and just experiencing, bringing our attention and seeing what happens. Of course, depending on perhaps even a spiritual, God of your understanding. I don't really have to make that leap unless I'm afraid. I don't have to say, oh, Jesus, please be with me or anything like that, because it's just and always a state of being of being with the presence of God. So I don't have to like be like, oh, let me pray to God now. It's always you're just there already. But whatever works, it might be something worth experiencing or knowing more about. So we'll just end with a few minutes of meditation. We can find ourselves laying down or in a seated posture. And I'll sit in this traditional Zazen posture, which I can actually hold for a few minutes. We'll spend a few minutes here. Bringing the awareness back into the room. And again, about the depending on, God. Usually I keep my type of classes non-denominational unless it's explicitly said that it's a Christian-based class. But it's whatever works uh, as far as these experiences, because I believe that God guides people to experience things in a way that's meant for it to occur. But I've definitely depended on God, my understanding of God. throughout any of these experiences. And I'd also invite you to perhaps be aware of that as well, which I'm sure you already have your experience with God. That's what you choose. So thanks for joining me in this practice today, and have a great day.